Hi, I'm Anna Demidchik. This is Laws of Achievement, and talking to me today is Katja Krizan. Katja is someone I met when I was looking for a personal trainer, and she was an amazing personal trainer. I loved every session with her. But as we got to know each other better, it turned out that she's also a very accomplished individual. She is originally from Slovenia. She came to the United States on an Einstein visa, which she got for basically being an amazing performer. So today, I really want to talk to her about her immigration journey, how she got the Dance Einstein Visa, and her current projects, including working with the Slovenian Olympic Committee and also her recent business venture. Katja, hi.
Hi.
Katja, so today is your 2-year anniversary of US citizenship, right?
Right. It's very awesome that we're talking about this today. And I know that we've been trying to, get together for a while, and it's awesome that it came on that day. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yes, quite a coincidence. Okay, so 2 years. I really want to hear all about your immigration journey. What was it like?
Looking back now, it was the one thing I can say, it was hard, but it was worth it. So I think it's always thinking of your goals and always thinking of what you want to achieve, and then the paperwork, I feel like it was the hardest part for me, because there is a lot of paperwork in your immigration journey, is if you make it legal, but it's I think it's just to say it short, it was hard, but it was worth it.
How long did it take you overall from when you first started?
So I first moved to the States. The funny part is that the first time I was in New York, it was in 2003. I was 16 at that point. I went with my dance teacher and another dance friend just for like education. So we went to New York, we danced there for 3 weeks, and that was it, right? So we got a lot of education, took a lot of classes, and at that point I was 16. Yes, New York was fun. It was overwhelming. I come from a very small country. Slovenia, I think, has a little more than 2 million people. So being in New York City, it was quite like a cultural shock, I would say, for me, because there's like so many different cultures, so many different races, nationalities. Like here in Slovenia, especially in 2003, it was primarily white population. Like I've never, seen anyone but white person. So coming to New York City, it was very, how would I say, like culturally rich. But
Visually
not to the
overwhelming.
not I never felt it in a negative way. It was just like, oh my God, this is so great. But never when I came back after that trip when I was 16, it was never like, oh, I want to live there. Like I can't wait to go back. Like it was just kind of like my life journey kind of took me to make that decision and be okay, I'm moving to the States. So basically the journey from that time on, from 2003, I never went back to the States until I actually decided, sold my car, sold everything I had, and got on a plane on a tourist visa to go and study dance. So that was 2009, so that was a little more than 15 years ago now.
Hmm. And why did you decide to come to America to begin with? Why not any other country?
Because of dance. So I used to dance. I started dancing when I was 4. So at that point, dance was my everything. I was a dance teacher in Slovenia. I was a choreographer. I was a performer. So my life revolved around dancing. So thinking about, making it better and making it bigger, it was either at that point London or New York, or LA would also be an option. But LA somehow seemed too far. London was never really, I don't know why. I mean, I know now after I traveled to London. But at that point, I don't know why London was not, because it was way closer. Like it's a 2-hour flight to London. But it was just never, it was just like, it just didn't feel right. And I was like, I've been to New York. I've been to that dance school. Like I kind of felt like I knew New York, although I spent 3 weeks
Hmm.
there. I was like, I've been there already, so I'm just gonna go there. So that's how it was also like I was also a theater dancer, and like there's more theater in New York than LA. LA is a little more commercial, so I think it was the whole Broadway and everything that was kind of like, okay, I'm going to New York.
Did you dance on Broadway?
I did not do any Broadway shows, but I did a Broadway Bears, which is, I don't know if you know it, is a show they do every year where you basically raise money for HIV. And they raise like millions and millions of dollars, and everybody perform, and it's such a great show. It's because it's like it has a great cause behind it, and it's just so it is a Broadway show, but it's not like something that's on the schedule daily or weekly.
So you came to New York on a tourist visa. How did you make it to the O visa? And for those who don't know, O visa is called the Einstein visa. It's the talent visa for highly accomplished people. So what did you do?
Right. So basically, my next journey was to apply for a student visa because, as you said, O1 is an Einstein visa, and it really is like when I was applying for it, it really is. It does feel like you have to tell them that you are an Einstein, and basically that's why you're coming here.
In there.
Right. So I first got it was like student visa. I think it was a J1. You'll know that, but I think it was a J1 visa where I studied dance at Broadway Dance Center. I was a full-time student, and I took a 12-month program. I think it was a year program. And then I was like, all right, I'm running out of cash. Like the life in New York is not cheap. And then I didn't want to work because I didn't want to get caught being deported because I was like, I want to stay here for long, right? And then, just in general, I was like, I can't do this program anymore because I've done it for a year. What's next? And then I applied as an au pair. So at that point, I was like, okay, how do I get back to the States? But I have to be close to New York, right?
So you left in the meantime, right?
Right. I left in the meantime for 3 months. Like that's one thing I have to say. Like if anyone wants to go through immigration route in the United States, never stay in the States illegally. Like make it happen and leave before your status is done because you'll never be able to come back. So at that point, I was making a plan on how to come back, still be in New York, still be present in dance community. So long story short, after about 4 months, I found family in Armonk, which is Westchester, where I lived with them for a year. And then I would work with kids, and on the weekend I would take dance classes. Sometimes I would even go like during the week when it was a good class, like I would drive to the train station, go on Metro North, go to the city, take class, and go back. Like it was really dance was my focus, and then that gave me time to start preparing my paperwork, do as many performances as possible in the States because I did not know that for Einstein visa you also need to prove that you are doing something in the States, which I found very contradictory because I'm like, you're not allowing me to work, right? So I can't legally work here. So how am I gonna do something here and then convince you that I'm good enough that you're gonna give me that visa, right? So I did, thankfully, especially dance community has a lot of shows, a lot of performances that are not paid, and no one's getting paid. So it's just kind of for like, I don't know, for publicity and marketing of choreographers. So I did a couple shows with a couple choreographers in New York while I was an au pair. And that kind of gave me, I did like also some video editing, and everything was like not paid, right? Because they couldn't even pay me because at that point as an
Right.
au pair you have no paperwork basically. So that was the time I was prepping for it. And then luckily one of my friends that I got to know during my life, at that point I was probably in New York for like 2 years on and off. um, she was leaving back to Sweden, and she had a dance job at this dance studio in Queens. And she was like, you should take over my classes teaching, and I'm sure the owner, the lady, is going to sponsor you, right? And I was like, are you serious? And she's like, Yeah, I mean, you can ask her. So at that point, we did this transition of me getting to know her. All right, cool, you're gonna teach. And then I told her, like, would you be willing to sponsor me? Like, I'll pay everything. You're not financially obligated to anything, but I do need a real person in America that's gonna sign this paper for me, like a company, right? And she said yes. And at that point, it was just me getting all the papers together. So my friend, that I took this job from in Queens, she went through the whole process herself. So she sent me the whole package. She was like, okay, this is how you need to do it. And she got it. So she sent me all these exhibits A, exhibit B, everything that it has to be in this packet. And I was probably preparing for 3 months. That's all I was doing. All the, all the interviews that I've done, all the pictures, all the competitions, all the diplomas, all that I've done in Slovenia. And then everything that I've done in New York, put it all together, send it, and then pray to God that I'm going to get it. And I got it actually, I think, within a month. So yeah,
That's quick.
yeah, I got it. I got it approved within the month, and then I had to wait to get like everything, like social security, the resident, like you can't travel until you have all your documents. So I think that was the longest time also when I was away from my family because I was with au pair for a year and then I was waiting for that. So I think it was like a year and a half that I haven't been home. So that was kind of rough at that point. I remember it was like, okay, I need to go home. But yeah, that was basically my O1 journey until I got it.
Wow, that's really impressive, just putting it all together and hoping that it works out.
I think the most important part, for anyone that's listening, that is, I also get asked often, how did you do it? How to do it. I think the most important thing is that you do need a little bit of luck. That's a fact. But it's also you also need to do something for it, right? You need to work hard. And, when people around me saw that, she's doing things, she would not offer probably, hey, you should teach. There was hundreds of dancers that we all knew, she would probably not offer it to me if she wouldn't think that I can be a reliable person to,
Right.
take that over. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
of course. When people offer you chances and advantages and help, it's because they see something in you. If these
right,
people are not
right,
your parents and not somebody invested in your well-being, right? Of course.
right.
Let me backtrack a little bit to the time when you were an au pair while also pursuing dance. On the day-to-day level, how easy or how hard was it to accommodate your dancing training? Because I would think it's some really rigorous training and diet and the lifestyle that goes with it. So how did you make it?
Right. That was not the best year. Also, I was still adjusting to the whole American culture and everything, and then being put into a house. I think it also depends on what house you get into. The kids I had were older, so I think they were at that point 9, 11, and 13. So basically, everything I was doing is making sure they ate, driving them around, and driving them around to activities. So my job as an au pair was not like I didn't have to clean. Like it was not, I would say, physically very demanding. It was more just logistics, right? So it was more like, okay, make sure that they're at soccer at that time, make sure that she's at dance at that time, and then pick them up and so when it comes to just physically being tired, I was not tired, right? But it was like adjusting to like American food, because as an au pair, you got to eat what they give you, right? Because I think you get, if I remember correct, like like it's been so long. I think you get like 250 a week, but I'm not sure how much. So
Mhm.
that basically covered my, I don't know, train ticket and my dance class,
Trying to get it.
So
Mhm.
it was not really, I was not really making money, so I couldn't really go to the store. They were very nice and they did ask me, let us know what you want us to buy you. So they were nice. They gave me a car so I could even drive to the city if I wanted to. So it was, from that point, like they were very helpful in me pursuing my career, which was also, I would say lucky, because I could get
Mhm.
into the family that would be like, you know, no, you can't use our car. Sure, you can go to the city on your off time, but you got to figure it out yourself how you're going to do it. So it's, again, I was lucky, but I did tell them ahead of time. I do remember that
Mhm.
because I was specifically looking for family in New York so I can go to dance classes. So if I would feel, because you do have an interview process too, and you do have Skype calls before they make a decision. So, I told them, I was like, I've been in the States for 2 years until now. So, I know the language, I know my way around, which is kind of better. But you also, I would appreciate, if you could when I do have my time off, if you can let me take dance classes. And they were very encouraging. I think I even did like a dance, like it was like a dance festival in Westchester when the kids had like some recital or something. They're like, "Can you perform?" So it was very, it just went kind of hand in hand, and it was a good match. But it was intense. It was, like I had to wake up at 7 a.m., be with the kids until 4 or 5, bring them back home, and then I got on a train back home. So I was home at 10 p.m. and that was almost every day. And then the weekends I usually spend in the city longer so I could take more classes because during the week I could only take one. And on the weekend, it was better because I could take more. But it was really everything was about dance. It was like, okay, I'm doing this for dance. I'm doing this
Mhm.
I'm doing this job so I can be here, so I can have my papers, and the money that I'm getting, I'm spending for dance. So it's very, at that point, I wasn't, it was, for me, it made a lot of sense at that point.
Mhm. You just had this purpose and everything made sense. How did you stay in shape like throughout the week? Did you have a place to work out? Did you do it in your own room?
Yeah. So I did not go to the gym at that point, but when the kids were
Mhm.
in school, I would like either go for a jog or I would do like a little workout in the house, like a little Pilates, like body weight exercises. I remember they also had that dance video game that you had a remote in your hand and you like I think it was called Wii or something. We danced and then we were like dancing. So I always try to stay active, but as far as like comparing myself to how in shape I was at that point, like that was probably the least amount of time I was working out and had time to be in shape and to be healthy or how.
I see. Let me ask you this. So you still a young person living in another family. Did that give you any insight in relationships and family dynamics that you appreciate going forward?
Yes, it was what gave me a lot was how different family kids are raised in America and how different is that to how was I raised, right? So like what are the values that are upfront and what are what how is just the whole structure, how much parents are involved. And we would like the au pair, it was from that side, it was very nice because you had other au pairs in the area and then you could talk and it just kind of seemed like
Mhm.
we were all experiencing the same thing because none of us I don't think any other girl was from Slovenia, but like there were Italian girls, there were German girls, and that's not too far away from me. So it's not that different. And, we talked about our upbringing and it was also very similar. So I think I think that was the best time for me to just learn, okay, this is how the kids grow up. Maybe that's why Americans are the way they are because that's how they grew up and that's how they're raised.
Can you name something specific?
I think what was this aha moment for me was when I think it was the oldest kid. He was 13. We were studying together, and I think it was something that you need to like the most important thing, like the value that you need to show to the world is that you are like that you are individual and you basically you're the best, kind of like in that kind of like very individualistic idea of doing things. And that was, to me, it was like, oh wow, okay. So that's why, because I always kind of had the feeling, because I don't get that feeling in Europe, but Americans are very confident, very, they know what they're doing. Like they always communicate very clearly, and it's always like there's no questions asked, right? It's very, the way they communicate is very straightforward. Mm, so I think it was that the kids already in school need to learn that they are individualistic person and they need to take care of themselves, right?
And that's different from what you saw in Europe.
Right. Because here's always like community, is always like you need to help others.
Did you feel uncomfortable when you were putting together your O1 visa application, sort of like putting yourself forward and practically screaming, "Hey, I'm the best. You really want me here?"
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's at some point I had to like, just be like, all right, you need to convince. To me, I always looked at it as like you need to convince them that you're good enough to stay here, right? It wasn't like I wasn't thinking, oh, I'm so like I'm the best. Like, how do I show them I'm the best? Okay, I'm gonna send them this, and I'm just gonna put this on. But to me, it was always like, no, like I really need to convince them with everything I've done that I am good enough to be here. But I do think that sponsorship and job was a big part of the whole process being approved, and everything going through, because I did everything without a lawyer, because at that point I could not afford one. So I think if you have everything um, that you're supposed to have, um, it has to be 100% right for it to be approved. And it still could not get approved, right? Because I remember I would, couple months after I got my O1, I sent my packet to my friend who was from South Africa because he wanted to apply for O1. And I was like, do just like I did and you'll get it, right? But I don't know how much accomplishments he had. So I don't know what his actual material was, but he didn't get it. So I think in America, a lot of times you also have to be a little lucky, like who gets the packet, who opens the documents, did they wake up in a good mood? Like, I feel like there's a lot of factors that need to be um, kind of involved in approval, I would say.
Well, and for O1, it's not enough to have just a number of events and performances and panels. They also have to be of the level that is high enough. You cannot just go to some neighborhood, whatever, singing contest or recital, right? So you really want to make sure that the level speaks for itself, or you need to submit a lot of proof that what you've been doing is actually pretty high grade, it's respectable in the field. And so if that other person did not have this, it's a problem.
That's the background. I don't know. So,
Mhm.
I, at that point, we won European Championship. I was in solo. I was like
Okay.
15 in the world. Like we were world champions. So, like competition wise, like I was covered. I knew that, right? We did a lot of performances. Also, like interviews are very important. I know I remember that I was called by one of the journalists here in Slovenia if I can do an interview. Like you have to give that as many times as you're present in the magazine or anywhere publicly, like you need to give it to them. And then the important part was also the US part, like that
Right.
you already have US mentors that see that value in you, like because you need to give. I think at that point I gave like 15 recommendation letters and half of them were US, right? So to me it's like, how do you, if you're not supposed to work, right? I mean, you're not supposed to be in the country if you're not legal, right? How do you get a recommendation from American if you don't know anyone? You know what I mean? Like I was
Right.
lucky enough that I studied for a year. I was an au pair for a year, so I was around because it's not even like in America, people are not just going to be like, yeah, I'll write you a recommendation letter. It doesn't go that way. Like people don't write recommendation letter just to write it, They need to actually, especially my experience is like that, in the dance world, like it was, yeah, I'll write it for you. And they actually wrote it. It wasn't like, send it to me and I'll sign it. So it was, for that part was very interesting to me because if I wouldn't be involved in the States for 2 years prior on my student visa and au pair visa, then I don't think it wouldn't matter that I had all these competitions and all that. If even probably even if I would have a sponsor, or maybe you can probably tell me that, I don't know, but I do think that just the whole package matters, that you were good before, that you're good now, and that you see the future in America. I think if you show them that and it makes sense, I think it's,
Hmm.
it's a success.
Right. And your accomplishments in competitions, is it something that was brought by a degree of luck, or how did you find your way into those competitions? Like, were you from a dance family? How did you get there?
My mom put me to dance when I was 4,
Hmm.
and I just kind of, fell in love with it, continued with it, and Slovenia is actually has a very quality dance schools and teachers, and we were always leaders in we were always finalists, I would say, first of, I don't know, first five, fifth, 1 to 5, it was always Slovenia. So just being in dance school, and I just loved it. And once you're part of the dance school that goes to competitions, you go to
Hmm.
competitions and then you train. And my entire life since I remember was about dance. It was vacations were dance. We maybe took like 2 week vacations during the summer, but other than that, it was all like summer camps, dance summer camps, and then a lot of dancing during school time. Even my high school, I went to sports high school where we had a special schedule just accustomed to your dance schedule. Like if I had trainings in the morning, like they would give me some work to do in the afternoon. So it was, they were very good like that, because it was, all athletes were different. There were like skiers there. They were gone for 3 months out of the year because they couldn't be in school because they were skiing. So it was a very good school that helped me to study and still be able to pursue my dance career and be good at it, at the end of the day.
And you already spoke English when you came to the United States, right?
I mean,
No.
no, let's say no, because
Okay.
we
So how was
do,
that?
we do, right, we do learn English in school. I was learning English since I was in first grade, so 7 years, but you don't speak, right? So, I was really good in writing. So when I would like message people from the States, once I moved and, you start getting friends and all that, people were like, oh my God, your writing is so good. And then when I like my talking was so slow because first of all, we learn British English, right, in school.
Right.
We don't learn American English. So, and New York is very specific. So it was like, what are you talking about? You gotta slow down. So it was very hard to just get. Once I was in it, and once I spoke English for a full month, like no other language, it was fine. Like that's when like it was flowing. Obviously, I still had accents. I still have accent. But I feel like gradually it just became easier.
Mhm. That is so similar to my own experience. Also studying British English back in
Yeah.
Russia, and coming here and not understanding two-thirds of what was being said to me. And I lived in South Carolina when I came here, so there's a whole separate accent
Yep.
there.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, first few months were brutal. I was getting migraines in the beginning just from so much pressure and just trying to understand. Did you have anything similar?
I wouldn't say migraines, but I do think that your brain gets like overwhelmed. Like I would say that after living here for so many years, even speaking Slovene after was hard. You know what I mean? Like it was very,
Yep.
um, because
Switching.
my brain, like I would think in English, I would dream in English. Like, so switching to Slovenian, it was rough for me when I would like visit for a week. When I full time lived in the States, I was like, oh my God, I don't know my language anymore. And even to this day, like, and I've been here for 3 years now, and I still feel more comfortable speaking English than Slovene, you know?
As far as the languages go, I noticed that, well, and it's not just I noticed, it's also something that's been actually researched. But for example, English is a language that's very elaborate where it comes to synthesizing information and making decisions or not making decisions based on that information.
Right,
So English has a lot of words for assume, presume, surmise, and that sort of thinking processes that result in some kind of conclusions or decisions. Whereas Russian does not have that elaborate decision making, conclusion making language, but it has more language regarding feelings and emotions. Would you say
right.
something similar in Slovenian?
Yes, it is very
Yeah.
similar to that, and very good point that you brought that up because a lot of times it's hard to explain people something in Slovenian language, and in English it's just one sentence, and I had to
It's a sentence
say
or a word, yeah.
7 sentences to explain it to them what this one sentence mean, right? So so
Mhm.
yeah, yeah, it's I I get to that since today too. Like I'm still, struggling sometimes with like, oh my God, this is so hard.
Well, yeah, that's where your whole thinking process essentially has to change, right?
Yeah.
It's not just the language; it's how you frame things in your own head.
I did start actually translating English directly into Slovene. Like that was the first process of my brain switching it up, right? It was like, okay, I'm gonna speak Slovene, but I'm gonna translate directly from English, and it just didn't
It's not
sound
coming out
right,
right.
right?
It's not coming out right.
People were like, "What are you
Mhm.
talking about?" I'm like,
What do
"All
you
right,
say?
let me rephrase that. This is not how I should say it."
Now
So
let's say
yeah,
it in Slovene,
right,
not
right,
just in Slovene words.
right, right.
Right. And another thing I noticed that was really interesting, it had more to do with people's reaction, is I remember when I was struggling to even understand what people were saying to me in the first few months, I was not talking much. I was mainly like looking at them intently and sometimes nodding and sometimes smiling. And everybody around me was convinced that I was very smart. And like here I am struggling to understand maybe half of what's being said to me, and everybody goes, Anna is so smart. That's just, I found it
Well,
very funny.
maybe it also came from maybe you were also I'm presuming you were also a very good writer, right? So I do think that
Yes,
Americans really appreciate when you can spell. They don't have a spelling show for no reason.
that's true.
So, when you're able to spell right and when you're able to make complete sentences and put a comma where a comma should be, and use capital where and all that, I feel like they very appreciate that. And I do think that that's smart. You are smart, right? But it's interesting that they got that, just from you nodding.
Well, I think back then it was not even writing because I did not correspond with a lot of people back then. It was literally from just not talking much and people assuming things. I
Right,
think
right.
sometimes
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
maybe it's the case
Sometimes that
of
works. Sometimes that works, right?
yeah, exactly. You can get far by
My
not
mom
saying
always
much at
said,
all.
if you don't have something smart to say, don't say anything at all. So,
Exactly. But back to you. So you're in the fitness field, you're still on the fitness journey. So what are you up to these days?
So these days I'm up to, so I am still a coach. I transitioned a little bit since, we work together, more into like being a coach than being just a trainer. So my approach changed a bit, in the sense that, I work with individuals that have a more in-depth and a more, purposeful wish idea to be better, right? To have a better life, to live better, to be healthier. So my approach kind of changed more into looking at their lifestyle, obviously injuries and the whole health profile, whatever the circumstances are, but how to fit and what kind of workouts does this individual need, knowing their lifestyle, knowing how they live, how much they sleep, how's their day to day, and then incorporating workouts into that, getting all their health profile in to know all the injuries, pain, whatever they're dealing with, and then attaching nutrition with it and recovery, right? So that probably changed a bit since, since I matured as a trainer, I would say, and kind of also pull myself out of just working to train someone and to give them a good workout, but to have a more in-depth relationship and actually changing lives, right? Actually make an impact, not just with the workout, but with the whole package on their life changing.
So you work with the professional athletes, or it's all kinds of people as well?
All kinds of people. I have a gymnast that will go to Olympics. Hopefully she's 15 now,
Mhm.
so we'll see. So yes, from athletes to professionals, to lawyers, fashion, all that. So um, basically, the busier the person is, the more they appreciate what you do for them, because you make it
Interesting.
effective and productive because they don't have time. I don't really have a lot of, clients that are, I don't know, I just want to like lose. Let's say if someone would come to me now and say, I want to lose 20 pounds, I would be like,
Mhm.
all right, it's great that you have a goal, but the way I work is I look at you whole. Like, why are you here 20 pounds? Like, why are you here 20 pounds too heavy that you want to lose? What happened? What is your lifestyle right now? What's your stress level? How much do you sleep? And all that. And then we slowly, obviously, slowly change everything. You can't do everything at once, right? So I never put someone on a training program and change their diet and tell them to sleep 8 hours a day because you will not accomplish that, right? So it's you go one by one, and then see how the person responds. Sometimes you switch things around because they don't respond well. So it's I would say I work more on a deeper level than just, oh, I'll come and train you and leave. You know what I mean? I'll give you a good leg workout and then I'll see you next week and we'll do upper body. Like I don't know, I'm just making things up, but just so you have the idea on how I work now and what is where I am right now.
No, it makes a lot of sense because I see a lot of people who are so enthusiastic to get into fitness, and then they get into fitness, and then they can't really sustain what they started as enthusiastic commitment, right? And then they
You mean people
overtrain,
working out or trainers?
and people working out,
Yeah, yeah.
right?
And I always say, like, for some people gym doesn't work.
Hmm.
I have some people that we don't work out in the gym because they don't want to work out in a gym. Like they don't feel comfortable in a gym. They don't need to work out in a gym. So it's not, and especially I feel like COVID brought a lot of options, and a
Hmm.
lot of different ways of how someone can still be active. I think that's for me. It in the past 5 years since I've been doing that, it just showed that it works better for clients, um, and it works better for me too because I get to keep my clients for longer. Really something has to happen that we don't work together anymore. It's either like even location change sometimes is not a problem. Like it has to be like some either financial, that financially they rebudgeted their money and they're just like, I don't know, moving or like, I don't know, losing, like they're switching jobs and they don't know where it's gonna take them. So it very rarely happens that I would just have someone for 3 months.
That's beautiful. Long
Yeah,
term.
yeah.
Yeah. And you also work for the Olympic Committee in Slovenia, right?
Right. I do. I train their staff. The Just like a group training. It's
Mm-hmm.
fun. It's fun because they're all some of them are ex-Olympians and now they work. They have jobs. So it's a very interesting crowd of people because they are all athletes, but they're older, right? So it's, I mean, older
Mm-hmm.
up to 50, so it's like I would say from 35 to 50. So it's nice because they have the competitive drive, um, the athletes in them, and then they are a little older and not as fit as they were or they would want to be. So it's always fun to to work with them.
Mm-hmm. And what are the main changes from when the athletes are younger to when somebody is like in their 40s or 50s, in the routine and the training?
Mentally is very different because younger athletes are eager. Younger athletes are young, they want to do it. So you're the one that has to like pull them back sometimes and be like, okay, you need a day off, because they just want to be the best tomorrow, right? And it's a process. But they are they're capable of a lot more things. Um, they recover much faster, so they can work a lot more. The volume can be bigger. They're very motivated to the point that that's their life. When on the other hand, when you have old athletes, like for them, you sometimes have to push them more because they're like, oh, I'm like old, I can't do it like I used to. Well, yeah, you can't do it like you used to, but you still can do better than what you're doing right now, right? So the structure of the workout is way different because now if you're training, let's say, if I take a real example, if I train a gymnast, like the workout is catered to whatever she's doing, to her sport, right? And when I train an ex-Olympian that, is now sitting 10 hours in the office and is no longer pursuing that sport and is just being active and sometimes, goes for a run or on a bike or on a hike, it's a completely different training. So for them, yes, it's good because they have muscle memory. They have the motivation because they do want to be better because they have that athlete in them. But they have the mental barrier of like, oh, I can't do this anymore. Like I can't do it like I used to.
Can they?
I mean, no, like you cannot be what you were at, especially when you're looking at a professional sport. Because training a professional athlete, if you look at the program, it's not the best. It's not program that will make you successful as a whole,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because
Right.
professional sport is always a path for injury. Like there's no way that you cannot get hurt. Majority of people gets hurt because you're constantly training in one pattern, right? So
Mm-hmm.
eventually everybody gets hurt to some degree, some more, some less, because it's so limited, right? So that's why I always, when I look at the program of an athlete and a program of someone that is just maintaining and trying to stay overall healthy and fit and functional, I would say this program is on the eye of a trainer always better and more
Of course.
complex, and it has a lot of different things, right? Because when you look at the gymnast, you can't you can't do a lot of things because it's going to slow her down, it's going to take her flexibility, it's going to so there's a lot of things that would be good for her, but you can't do it because it's going to counterpoint what she needs to perform.
Can you give an example of what would be the training that would take away flexibility?
Strength training.
Strength training.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So you have to be very careful with them because they have to be strong, right? That's the
Mm-hmm.
counterpart of it, right? They have to, if you look at Simone Biles, right? She's a bullet. She's
Yeah.
super strong,
There's a
right?
lot of
But
muscle
she's
there.
also
Mm-hmm.
very flexible, right? So she needs to still do more flexibility than strength training and more plyometrics,
Mm-hmm.
more power training, less this continuous load on the strength training and more power, more explosive move, more plyometrics, more. more things that will make her more sufficient in what she needs to do when she performs. So
Mm.
strength training is one thing that, it's only, we usually always do it in the off season. We don't train strength during season because she can be slow for 3 days after she does a good strength training session.
Huh.
It can affect her. Yeah, yeah. And then when
The
she does a
routine.
double salt, right? Like you can't be slow there, right? So
Huh.
you need to be able to do those things. So it's tricky. It's tricky when you work with athletes. It's to me a lot trickier, and it's different, very different.
Of course. I never thought about it, about this kind of impact that if you do strength training, then you can be slow for the next few days. That's fascinating.
Try and do a good strength session, like a heavy load, right? That you do up to like
Mm.
6 reps, and then go running the next day. You'll see.
Mm. Right,
You'll
right.
have
Huh.
heavy legs, especially if you work legs and then go running, right? Like you'll have heavy
Right.
legs, you'll feel slower, you'll feel fatigue a lot faster. So,
Mhm.
yeah,
Well,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm not an athlete, so I just do a recovery day after something
There
heavy.
you go.
And so
There
it's
you
never an
go.
issue. Right. But I guess professional athletes don't have this kind of leeway to
Right,
just take a
right.
day. Hmm.
Yeah,
Interesting. I was looking through your Instagram and I noticed that you were big on weightlifting for quite some time, right? Like going back to when you started your Instagram. You have a lot
right.
of pictures there about how important it is to lift weights, and there are quotes like "act like a lady, lift like a boss." And I
Yeah.
think if I'm not mistaken, I might be. This was before everybody was weightlifting. Uh, am I right, or
I mean,
is
people have been weightlifting. I mean, bodybuilding era was in the 80s, right? So
well?
people have been, right.
No,
People
I
have
don't
been
mean
lifting,
bodybuilders, but I mean like generally.
like general
Hmm.
population, you mean?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. Hmm.
Um, I mean, I always, I'm always guided in everything I do by knowledge and education, right? So when I was going through personal training certification, and even being in school for athletes, like just the entire my journey was always, you need to lift weights, right? No matter what.
Hmm.
Like even when we were dancers, like we still lifted weights. Yes, were they 5 pounds? Yes, but they were weights, right? So it all depends on, in what you're doing and what your goal is. But if you look at just research, and when I was learning, more in depth on how strength training works on your body and what it does, and what are the consequences of not doing strength training, it was just like, okay, this is a must. Like we all need to strength train. We
Hmm.
all need to lift weights. So I think that's where I came from. It was, this is something, that's how I started as a trainer. I'm going to teach everybody how to properly squat, how to properly lunge, how to properly do a back exercise, and how to do 10 push-ups. Yes, you're a woman, but you can still do 10 push-ups, right? And majority of clients hated me for it, especially female clients. Like, I don't want to do push-ups, right? You probably remember. So it's, I don't know. To me, when I was going through that journey and when I was studying, it just felt like this is a must. So I think that's why lifting weights was such a big part of my beginnings.
Hmm. And today in the fitness, do you see any trends that you consider really good, something developing that we did not have before, or to the contrary, something very harmful?
Um, I am slightly removed from the States from the past 2 years, but I can speak pre-COVID, and I can speak for the States, and I can speak what I see here now. Although I think Slovenia is in most things 10, if not more years behind United States. So, I do wish that we would have a more extensive education for trainers, not because we don't have educated trainers, but because there's so many trainers that are not doing enough to be to stay with, not just saying trends. Like I'm not big into trends. Like I believe that you need to find what works for you. And trends are usually they come and go. So like if you buy, I don't know, if you buy a boxing gloves now because it's in, I don't think it is, but just saying, for example, like, are you still going to use it in 3 years when it's not going to be in, right? Like find something that you can stick to, and that it works for you, right? So I wish that, going back to the whole training and trainers in general, I wish that we would be part of health journey for people. Like I wish that they wouldn't prescribe them pills, but they would say, here's $200, get a trainer. You know what
Mm-hmm.
I mean? Like that insurance companies would actually support active lifestyle, and someone would, and on the other hand, that's why I would educate trainers more extensively, because then they would have an actual education and we would feel safe. Doctor would feel safe to say, I'm not going to prescribe you these pills for high blood pressure. Go have a trainer, like do something about your life, because I do think that obviously if the doctor thinks that this is a good idea, right? Because a lot of times, if doctor thinks it is, then they would do it. So, and a lot of times, my clients do tell me that doctors are like, yeah, keep working out and you'll be fine. But I
Mm-hmm.
do wish that that would be more supported by the government, because I do think that, we would all be healthier. But on the other hand, I do know why it's not, because there's a lot of medical and pharmaceutical, not a lot of money in pharmaceutical, companies, and so it's gonna be hard. But I do wish that that would be the case.
So basically, the same thing as we have with mental health now, where therapy is often covered. You would want that
Right,
for fitness as well.
right, right,
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. Makes sense. Especially makes sense considering that from what I see happening in American schools, a lot of times the physical education, the PE classes, are not adequate at all. I went to an American high school for a year, and our PE was walking, literally walking for the duration of the class. And that is just so
right,
not right.
right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
There is no basis of at least jogging, at least doing some, I don't know, squats and push-ups, right? The
right,
things that a lot of
right.
people do in other countries. By the way, speaking of in Slovenia, how is it with high school physical fitness?
It's good. I mean, it's,
It's
kids
good.
are the problem in general, I think, in countries where, you have relatively good teachers when it comes to physical activity. The problem is what happens with kids when they come from school, right? That hour a day, like, I mean, they don't even have it usually 1 hour a day, but, it's 3 hours a week are not going to do it. Is if your kid's going to come home, play video games, and eat
Mm-hmm.
Doritos, right? This is not going to happen. So I think it starts with parents. Like I always encourage, which you probably also saw on my Instagram. I always encourage my clients, bring your kid to training. Like don't cancel your session because you have to be home with your kid. Bring it with you, right? If it's not sick to the point that it can come. But like, let's say when they have like school holidays or whatever, they always bring their kids to the session. And if the kids want, like, they work out with them. So I do think that a lot of times with kids, it starts with parents, right? If the parents
Mm-hmm.
encourage activities, then the kid is going to be active.
Mm-hmm.
So, I do think that school is very good if it can give you like a base of some motor skills, some
Right.
mobility, some kind of movement, getting to know how to throw a ball, like basics, right? Um, this is very good for base, but it doesn't necessarily mean that because you have this in school, like now you're like set up to be an athlete, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's
Oh,
sad
of
that it
course.
is the way it is in the States. But you know,
Yeah, I mean, it seems like the schools are so risk averse that God forbid somebody like sprains an ankle. It's
right,
horrible. So
right,
everybody's
right.
just walking. It's so boring, and everybody hates PE because it's so boring, you know?
Yeah, we used to
Right.
love gym classes. It was the best. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And when I was growing up in Russia, it was not always the best, but it was a lot more entertaining and a lot more challenging than what I
Right, and
saw here in the
diverse,
US.
and right, you try different things, and yeah,
Hmm. Yeah, and you climb rope and you play basketball, and another season you play volleyball during the regular PE class, not on a
right.
team. You don't have to make a
Yeah,
team.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Right.
yeah,
All
yeah,
about it.
yeah, yeah.
Mhm. And so, the reason we could not make this interview happen for so long is because you were so engaged in your new business venture, the smoothie place. Right. So, how did
Right.
that come about?
Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
That's
So
good.
not just that, I think it's also the time difference. It's really hard.
Well,
Um, but Smoothie Place, it's we just closed it for the winter because we had smoothies and lemonades and all that summer fun. So we're gonna put it on hold for the winter. I'm also spending almost a month in the States, so it would not be a good business
mhm,
decision to do that. But yeah, the Smoothie Place came about around June, beginning of June. And it was a very quick decision. So I also am unofficial reseller and importer of products. New Zealand product is the company called Nuances. So I've been using their protein powders and their greens and their bars since I was in New York. So I've been using their products for probably like 10 years at least. And then once I got to Slovenia, I couldn't get it. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to start, importing this. So, which was also, maybe for another interview if you want, but it was also a journey to make the paperwork happen for, that kind of thing. Because Slovenia is, it's very slow. So it was also a very, long project, but long story short, so because I am an official importer of those proteins powders, I decided to, open a smoothie bar because I live very close to city center here in Ljubljana. So I would take walks with my dog very often, and I very often wanted like a lemonade on the go or like an iced tea or a protein smoothie or whatever, and I just couldn't get it. And I'm like, okay, so I decided I got an opportunity, and they offered me this. You will probably know because you grew up in Russia. You know the old school kiosks where they were selling like newspaper and cigarettes, right? So in Slovenia, they converted that into like a little kiosk, right? Though you can just do in there whatever you want. The guy before us, I think it was making pancakes. So yeah, so I'm lucky that my partner is in hospitality. So he was a big help with, setting up everything. But it was basically we set it up from scratch. We had to like put up a menu, um, get like a little creative picture of how everything's gonna look. So I think it was mainly what my decision was based on is because I wanted to give people something that, in New York is very, on every step you can get a protein smoothie, on every step you can get like a drink, right, to go. And here it's not like that. So, I kind of saw the opportunity in that. And then it was just a big success. It was a very big, I
okay.
was so surprised. It was, I didn't know what to expect. I literally went into, all right, whatever happens, happens. I think every time you make that kind of business decisions, you always have to be prepared to lose the money. So I was prepared to lose
Right.
the money. I was like, even if I lose it, I'm still going to be fine. It's going to be okay. But let's just try and make the best of it. So, yeah, so thank God we got our niece to help me too, because she's in second grade of high school, so she's able to legally work. She's old enough, so she helped us a bunch. And it was just, yeah, I was still training and still trying to, at some point I was during the training session, she called me. She was like, I ran out of ice. I'm like, I'm during a session. I don't know what to do, right? So
Figure it out.
right, figure it out. So it was a very hectic summer. I did not have a vacation yet this year, so I'm looking forward to it. But yeah, because it was every day, although it's a business that's open 6 hours, but it takes probably 10, a day.
Of
So, because
course, to get it all
right,
set up and then clean it out,
right,
right?
right,
Hmm.
right. So yeah, so that's kind of the idea behind why it happened and how we went about it.
That is fascinating how you just put it together on the fly. And
Yeah.
you mentioned there was a lot of paperwork importing the product. What about paperwork getting all the licenses necessary to open it? Was that difficult?
No, that was not difficult because my company already was, because I did a few fairs in the past 2 years, like little markets, where you go and like present and you make people smoothies so they can try the product. So I already had that already covered, so that was easy fix. But yeah, the whole paperwork of you have to send them all the lab analysis, like everything that, what this product actually is. So it's that part was very time consuming to say the least. It was not expensive,
Mhm.
but it was very time consuming. And, you know, in Slovenia, like people, if they don't need to do it, like they don't really want to do it. So you have to keep calling them, so it's like,
Okay.
it just takes a lot of determination, a lot of patience, and you need to just
Mm.
take time, and it happens, but you need to have all those things.
All right. Was anything unexpectedly difficult in this new business venture for you?
I think I just didn't, but also because I none of like my partner is in hospitality for 25 years. Like he was caught off guard. Like I think because none of us expected what that would be, right? Like for him, it was like when something happened, when it was like, all right, so we had a fridge, for example, we had a fridge in, and we figured out that we don't have enough ingredients that in the fridge that we use them in a day. So how do we fix
Mhm.
that? Like we need to have storage somewhere, right? Because 2 o'clock comes around, we need to refill it. Like we didn't think about that,
Right.
right? So
Somebody has
that
to do
was
it.
yeah, so that was something that, it was just logistical. Okay, we need to, figure that out, how we're gonna do it. But no,
Mhm.
besides that, it was not hard. It was very enjoyable. You work mostly with tourists. There was a lot of Americans that came. So to me, I most of the time I spoke English because, during the summer we get a lot of tourists here in Ljubljana. So it's from that perspective, to me, it was more enjoyable than hard. It was something totally different. And, just the fact that, when you make them a smoothie and they're like, oh, it's really good. It's like, oh, this is nice, and you can make someone's day. And, I had people, like one lady, I remember she came, she was like, oh my God, you have protein smoothies. That's the only thing I wanted. So it's like, when that happens, it's like, okay, cool, we're doing something right. So no, from that, just logistically, I think it was a couple, things that we need to adjust because we just didn't expect that it's going to go so well. So, but no, besides that, no.
So you've been pretty successful along the way. You have a successful dance career. You've immigrated here quite successfully. Now you had this unexpectedly successful business venture.
Right, right.
What do you think are the main qualities or the main habits or the main attributes of you that helped shape this success?
Um, I think hard work, something
Hmm.
that, it's being a hard worker. I think it's something that I often think about because a lot of times I get to the point when I work too much and I'm like, okay, this is not good, right? You like burn out. But I do think that being willing to work hard you need to have a clear picture of what you want. That's first thing. And then the second thing, I think I always do everything from the heart. So something that, I work with people because I genuinely want to make them better, right? Yes.
Mhm.
Is it good that they pay me at the end? Great, perfect. But I would not be, I always tell when I sometimes mentor trainers too, because they're like, oh, so, I want to like be better, like how to go about it. Like, I don't want to lose clients every 6 months. Like, how can you retain someone for 7 years? So I always tell them, like, don't do it for the money, like, because people are going to feel that. So you should
Mhm.
never, whatever you do it because it feels right for you. Like, don't look at someone else that's doing something and ooh, like they're getting paid so much money, or like they have such a great life, and like a lot of times people were telling me, oh my god, you travel so much, like you're everywhere. Yeah, but you don't know that while I'm in New York I do 5 sessions a day, and then I go
Mhm.
and have a good time, right? Or you don't know that when I'm for the weekend when I'm in Budapest, like that I just did 3 sessions in the morning online, right? So it's always take responsibility, especially if you have a job like mine. Because I do feel a lot of times, responsible for my clients to the point that, I want to give them the best service that, they need. Um, and then on the other hand, when you do take time for yourself, because if you can't do something with your heart if you don't take care of yourself. So for me, that's I always make sure that I do at least 2 runs a week. I have to go to the woods at least for like an hour and a half with my dog. And then I try to get at least 1 or 2 sessions of strength training a week. Just that's me time, right? That's something that, I go to the gym where I don't work, when I don't know anyone, right? And then I'm able to, when I take care of myself, I'm able to, do that. And then just being persistent. I do feel like a lot of times people do something, they get very excited, just like you were talking about it before, and then they don't get results either right away or maybe like in 2 or 3 months, and then they just give up. Like, don't give up. Like, find a different way of doing achieving your goal, right? Like, if this doesn't work, then try something else, right? Don't see that as a failure, but see it more as an opportunity.
Mhm. So switch to something different, but continue, basically.
Right, like continue with, whatever you're doing. If you're trying to lose weight, you either have to eat less or burn more calories. Like, it's very simple.
How do you motivate yourself on the days when you are just not feeling it? Like you don't have the passion in
Um
you on that specific day.
Usually it's knowing how good I'm gonna feel after.
Mm.
That's one thing. And usually I don't have a choice, because usually the days that I schedule for running, or or going into the woods with my dog, that usually takes me about 3 hours. I don't just have, as you know, because we've been trying to schedule that for so long, I don't have 3 hours. If I don't do it today, I'm not going to have 3 hours for next 3 days. So I have to do it today. You know what I mean? So it's basically, if I don't do it now, I'm not going to do it until, let's say, Thursday. And then I know I'm going to be grumpy, right? Because if I
Yeah.
don't work out, I get
Thank
very
you. Yeah.
grumpy. So, and everything is out of order. So I'm like, I just have to do it. So it's basically my lifestyle gives me the motivation of doing it. It's that I know I'm going to be so much better at everything that's coming if I do this for me right now, although I don't really feel like it.
I see. Thank you so much, Katya. This was fascinating. Your
Thank
journey
you.
is
Yeah,
just amazing.
thank
Thank you
you.
for
Thank you.
sharing it.
It's such a great conversation.